I gave my niece power of attorney after a stroke left my body weak, but my mind sharp as a tack. She thought I was a helpless old woman. She thought I wouldn't notice when she sold my prized 1965 Cadillac, the one thing I cherished most in this world. She was right, I didn't notice. I found out. And while she was at the bank trying to drain my life savings with the check from my own car, she found out what happens when a shrewd old businesswoman has time to think. She was about to learn that I could take back everything she thought she had, and I could do it while she was still counting the money. Before I begin, thank you for being here. For being part of this community. If you believe in the power of a woman reclaiming her dignity in her life, then you are in the right place. Please, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. It means the world to me. Now let me tell you what they did to me. My name is Esther Mae Washington, and for 40 years, I was the undisputed queen of Monroe Street. Not because of any crown or title, but because of something far more substantial. Sweet potato pie, collard greens seasoned just right, and a business sense as sharp as my best butcher knife. I was the owner, operator, and heart of Mae's Kitchen, a soul food restaurant in the heart of West Baltimore that I built from the ground up with my own 2 hands and a book of my grandmother's recipes. I never married, never had children of my own. My restaurant was my spouse and the community was my family. I worked 16-hour days, my hands perpetually dusted with flour, my apron stained with the secrets of a perfect gravy. I knew my customers by name, knew their joys and their sorrows, and I fed them all with a love that was baked into every biscuit. Mae's Kitchen wasn't just a place to eat, it was a sanctuary. It was where deals were made over plates of fried chicken, where romances blossomed in booths worn smooth by time, and where the neighborhood's triumphs were celebrated. And it made me a success. I wasn't just scraping by, I was thriving. I bought my 2-story brick house on a quiet tree-lined street and paid it off in 10 years. I invested my profits with a shrewd, cautious eye, building a nest egg that would see me through a comfortable, independent retirement. I was a self-made woman, beholden to no one, my life a testament to the power of hard work and a well-seasoned cast-iron skillet. But every queen, even one whose throne is a stool behind a cash register, deserves a chariot. On my 50th birthday, I walked into a classic car dealership and paid cash for my one true indulgence. A 1965 Cadillac DeVille convertible, with paint the color of a rich red velvet cake and an interior of creamy white leather. It was a magnificent, audacious machine, a rolling symbol of every dream I had ever dared to dream. I kept it in my garage under a custom-fitted cover, and drove it only on Sundays or for special occasions. The purr of its V8 engine was the most beautiful music I had ever heard. It was more than a car, it was my trophy. It was the physical manifestation of my success, a reminder that a woman from Baltimore could build an empire one plate at a time. While I had no children, my heart had a space reserved for one person, my niece Brianna. My younger sister passed when Brianna was just a teenager, and I stepped in without a second thought. She became the daughter I never had. I put her through college, paid for her first apartment, and danced at her wedding when she married Darnell. I loved her with a fierce, protective love that asked for nothing in return. She was family, and for me, family was everything. She was a regular presence in my life, her visits a source of genuine joy. I saw her as a good, kind-hearted woman, perhaps a little too concerned with appearances, but whose heart was in the right place. When I finally retired at 70, selling the restaurant to a young man who had started as my dishwasher, I settled into a life of quiet contentment. I had my home, my garden, my portfolio, and my beautiful red Cadillac. And I had Brianna. It was, I thought, a perfect life, a well-earned rest. Then on a Tuesday morning in May, my perfect life came to a screeching halt. I was in my kitchen, reaching for a glass in a high cabinet, when a sudden, blinding flash of light exploded behind my eyes. The world tilted violently, and a strange numbness swept down the left side of my body. My arm went limp, the glass slipping from my fingers to shatter on the floor. My leg gave way and I crumpled, my cheek hitting the cool linoleum with a dull thud. I tried to call out, but my tongue was a thick, useless thing in my mouth, the words a garbled mess. Soak. Even in the terrifying, disorienting fog, my mind, my sharp, analytical mind, knew the word. I was having a stroke. I lay there, trapped in a body that had suddenly become a prison, listening to the ticking of the kitchen clock, each second an eternity. By the grace of God, Brianna had been scheduled to stop by that morning to drop off some mail. It was she who found me, she who called the ambulance, her frantic voice the last thing I heard before the world faded to black. I woke up in a hospital bed, the sterile smell of antiseptic filling my nostrils. The stroke had been major. It had stolen the strength from my left side and tangled the words on my tongue. My speech was slow, slurred, each word a monumental effort. My face drooped, giving me the look of a sad, broken doll. But beneath the damaged exterior I was still there. My mind, the part of me that had built a business, that had negotiated with suppliers and balanced the books for 40 years, was untouched. It was as sharp, as clear as ever. I was Esther Mae Washington, trapped inside a faulty machine, but I was still the queen. The problem was, when everyone else looked at me, all they saw was the faulty machine. They didn't see the woman inside. And that, I would soon learn, was the most dangerous disability of all. The days in the hospital bled into a monotonous, humiliating routine of tests, assessments, and the well-meaning but condescending tones of doctors who spoke about me as if I weren't in the room. "Her cognitive function seems impaired," one young resident noted to his attending right in front of me. I wanted to scream, to tell him that my cognitive function was just fine, that I could probably calculate his student loan interest faster than he could. But the words came out as a low, unintelligible growl. My frustration was a caged animal, pacing behind the bars of my new physical limitations. Brianna was a constant presence, a whirlwind of efficiency and performative concern. She fluffed my pillows, spoon-fed me broth, and spoke to the nurses with an air of authority, positioning herself as the devoted, indispensable caretaker. "Don't you worry about a thing, Aunt May," she would say, patting my good hand. "I'll handle everything." Her husband, Darnell, was there too, hovering in the background, his eyes always scanning, calculating. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the private room, the expensive equipment, his expression a mixture of feigned sympathy and financial appraisal. After the hospital, I was moved to a residential rehabilitation facility. It was a place of quiet desperation, filled with people like me, fighting to reclaim pieces of themselves from the wreckage of strokes and accidents. It was there that Brianna and Darnell staged their intervention. They sat on either side of my wheelchair in the small, sunless room, their faces masks of loving concern. "Aunt May," Brianna began, her voice soft and persuasive, "we need to talk about your finances." I nodded slowly, the effort of the small movement tiring. "The bills are starting to pile up," she continued. "The hospital, this facility, it's a lot. And your accounts are, well, they're locked up. We can't pay your bills for you without your signature and, well," she gestured vaguely at my limp left hand. "It's just not practical." Darnell leaned forward, his voice oozing a practiced sincerity. "What you need, Esther, is someone to manage things for you while you focus on getting better. Someone you can trust." "We spoke to a lawyer," Brianna said, her voice dropping to a confidential whisper. "He said the best thing to do, the only thing to do, is for you to grant me a durable power of attorney. It's just a piece of paper, really. It would give me the ability to sign your checks, pay your bills, and talk to the insurance company on your behalf. It's to protect you. To protect you." The words hung in the air. I looked at my niece, the girl I had raised, the woman I loved like a daughter. I saw the earnest look in her eyes, the carefully constructed mask of devotion. My mind, my sharp, analytical mind, screamed a warning. A power of attorney was not just a piece of paper. It was a key. A key to my entire life, to everything I had worked for. But my heart, my foolish, loving heart, wanted to trust her. She was my family. My only family. "It's the only way, Aunt May," she pressed gently. "We just want to take care of you." I was tired. The fight to speak, to move, was exhausting. The thought of navigating the labyrinth of medical bills and insurance claims from my wheelchair was overwhelming. I looked at her hopeful, smiling face and I relented. I gave a slow, deliberate nod. The next day they arrived with a notary. Brianna held the thick document on a clipboard, her finger pointing to the line where I needed to sign. My right hand, my good hand, trembled as I took the pen. The signature was a spidery, misshapen version of my once confident script, a testament to my own weakness. As the notary stamped the page with a heavy, final thud, I felt a cold dread wash over me. It felt less like a solution and more like a surrender. I had just handed the keys to my kingdom to someone else, and I could only pray they wouldn't lock me out. My prayers went unanswered. In the weeks that followed, I began to overhear snippets of conversation, hushed whispers from the hallway when they thought I was asleep. The investment portfolio is even bigger than I thought, Darnell murmured one evening, his voice tight with excitement. We're talking 7 figures, Bree. Shoo, she'll hear you, Brianna hissed back. And it's not we. It's for her care. That's what the lawyer said. Her care, right? Darnell scoffed. Her care doesn't cost that much. A woman her age, in her condition, how much longer can she really need it? This is our chance, Brianna. This is everything we've been waiting for. I lay in my bed, my eyes closed, my body rigid, the blood turning to ice in my veins. They saw me as a dying woman. A collection of assets waiting to be liquidated. My life was an inconvenience, a temporary obstacle on their path to my money. The power of attorney wasn't a tool to protect me. It was the weapon they were going to use to rob me. And I, with my own trembling hand, had signed it over to them. The weight of that signature was heavier than any stroke. It was the weight of a betrayal so profound it threatened to crush what little spirit I had left. After 2 months of grueling physical therapy, I was finally allowed to go home. Brianna and Darnell had arranged for an in-home health aide, a kind woman named Maria who came every morning, but the evenings and weekends were left to them. They moved with a new proprietary air around my house, their voices a little too loud, their presence a little too permanent. They spoke of my things as if they were already theirs. We should get rid of this old armchair, Kendra commented one day, running a disdainful hand over the worn velvet. It's so dated. I said nothing. I sat in my wheelchair, a silent, watchful queen on a throne they didn't recognize, and I observed. The first concrete sign of their treachery was subtle. A bank statement left on the kitchen counter. I wheeled myself over when they were out, my good hand picking it up. There was a withdrawal for $5,000 with the memo, household expenses. I had never spent $5,000 on household expenses in a single month in my entire life. My mind, my sharp, orderly mind, filed the information away. It was the first piece of evidence. But the true, gut-wrenching betrayal came a few weeks later. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon in late summer. Maria had helped me out to the sunroom, a glass-enclosed space at the back of the house that overlooked my garden and the detached garage where I kept my Cadillac. For years, the highlight of my weekend had been the ritual of taking the cover off the car, the soft fabric sliding away to reveal the gleaming cherry-red paint beneath. I couldn't drive it now, but just seeing it, knowing it was there, was a comfort. It was a connection to the strong, independent woman I had been, a promise of the woman I was fighting to become again. I asked Brianna if she would mind opening the garage door so I could look at the car. "Oh, Aunt May," she said with a dismissive wave of her hand. "What do you want to look at that old thing for? It's just sitting there collecting dust." "Please, Brianna," I said, my slurred voice making the plea sound weak, pathetic. "Fine," she sighed with the exaggerated patience of a martyr. She went outside and I heard the familiar rumble of the electric garage door lifting. I wheeled myself to the window, my heart filled with a simple, hopeful anticipation, a desire to see the one thing in my life that was still perfect, still mine. The garage door was fully open. And the garage was empty. I stared, my mind refusing to process what my eyes were seeing. The space was cavernous, bare. The custom cover was gone. The trickle charger was gone. The oil pan I kept on the floor to catch any stray drips was gone. All that remained was a dark rectangular stain on the concrete where my beautiful car had once rested. It was a void. A gaping black hole in the center of my life. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. A strange, cold calm washed over me. It was the calm of absolute, horrifying certainty. They had sold it. They had sold my car. My trophy. My soul. The one thing I had asked them, begged them never to part with. Brianna came back into the sunroom, her face a mask of feigned innocence. "There, you see. It's just an empty garage." I turned my head slowly, my eyes locking onto hers. I let the silence stretch, the unspoken accusation hanging in the air between us. She couldn't meet my gaze. Her eyes darted around the room, a flush creeping up her neck. "What?" she asked, her voice a little too high. "What's that look for?" "The car," I managed to say, the 2 words costing me almost all my strength. "Where is the car?" She finally broke. A torrent of excuses and justifications poured out of her, a river of lies designed to wash away her guilt. "Aunt May, you have to be practical. It was for your own good. You can't drive anymore and the insurance was costing a fortune. It was just an asset sitting there depreciating." Darnell found a collector, a man who will really appreciate it. We got a great price for it, a really great price. That money is going to go so far for your care. We put it right into your account. It's for you. For you. The same words she had used to convince me to sign the power of attorney. The lie was so audacious, so insulting, it almost took my breath away. She hadn't sold it for me. She had sold it for herself. She had taken my history, my pride, my one beautiful thing, and she had converted it into cash. I looked past her, out the window at the empty, mocking space. I thought of the day I bought that car, the feeling of the leather under my hands, the roar of the engine as I drove it off the lot. I thought of the Sunday drives, the wind in my hair, the feeling of absolute freedom. They hadn't just sold a car. They had sold my memories. They had sold my spirit. In that moment, sitting in my wheelchair, a frail old woman with a broken body, something inside me shifted. The grief, the shock, the profound sense of loss. It all coalesced and hardened into something new. It was a cold, quiet, and utterly ferocious fury. It was the fury of a queen whose castle had been sacked, whose crown had been stolen. They thought I was weak. They thought I was finished. They had mistaken the stillness of my body for the stillness of my mind. They had made a fatal, catastrophic miscalculation. They had left the queen on the board, thinking she was just a pawn. And now this queen was going to take back the entire board. The war had begun. In the days following the discovery of the empty garage, a profound change settled over me. The fury did not manifest as shouting or weeping. My damaged body wouldn't allow for such displays even if my spirit had wanted them. Instead, it turned inward, banking itself like a coal fire, glowing with a low, intense and patient heat. I became an observer, a strategist, a silent general planning a campaign from behind enemy lines. My wheelchair was my command post, and my perceived frailty was my greatest camouflage. Brianna and Darnell, believing they had gotten away with the ultimate transgression, became careless. Their conversations, once hushed whispers in the hall, were now held in brazen, open tones in the living room, just feet from where I sat, supposedly dozing in my chair. They saw me as a piece of furniture, a non-entity. They had no idea I was absorbing every word, every dollar amount, every greedy plan, and filing it away in the meticulous archives of my mind. The check from the collector cleared, Darnell announced one evening, his voice booming with triumph. $55,000. Can you believe it? For that old piece of junk. My heart clenched at the insult, but my face remained impassive. $55,000. They had sold a car worth nearly double that to a serious collector for a quick lowball cash price. They were not just thieves. They were incompetent thieves. We'll deposit it into her account on Friday, Brianna schemed, her voice a low, conspiratorial hum. To make it look legitimate. Then on Monday we use the power of attorney to transfer that, plus another $100,000 from the main investment account, over to our new joint account. We'll call it long-term care planning. She laughed, a short, ugly sound. By the time anyone notices, we'll have the down payment for the new house. They had laid out their entire plan of attack for me, a detailed blueprint of their own destruction. They had given me the timeline, the amounts, and the location of the final battle. My bank. My own campaign began with a single crucial phone call. I waited for a morning when Maria, my health aide, had stepped out to run an errand and Brianna was at work. My hands trembled, not from weakness but from adrenaline. My speech was still a struggle, but I had been practicing, marshaling my strength for this very moment. I dialed a number I knew by heart. Law offices of Thompson, Finch and Associates. A crisp voice answered. David Thompson. Please, I managed to say, my voice a hoarse, slurred version of its former self. David Thompson had been my lawyer for 30 years. He had handled the sale of my restaurant and had drafted my will. He was a sharp, no-nonsense man who respected my mind. I prayed he would be able to hear past the broken speech to the woman he had always known. This is David Thompson. His familiar, gravelly voice came on the line. David, I said, pouring all my will into forming the words. It's Washington. There was a pause. Esther, my God. I heard about your stroke. Are you all right? No, I said simply. I need your help. Over the next 20 minutes, in slow, painstaking sentences, I laid out the situation. I told him about the power of attorney, the missing car, the planned withdrawal. I could hear him taking notes, his pen scratching furiously on the other end of the line. He didn't interrupt. He didn't condescend. He listened. When I finished, there was a moment of profound, angry silence. "The predatory, ungrateful fools," he finally said, his voice tight with a cold fury that mirrored my own. "Esther, I am so sorry. But don't you worry. We are going to fix this. We are going to fix this immediately." His confidence was a balm to my wounded spirit. "What do we do?" I asked. "First thing," he said, his voice all business now, "is we revoke the power of attorney. I will draft a revocation document immediately. It's legally binding the moment you sign it. It doesn't require their consent or even their knowledge. I'll have a courier and a mobile notary bring it to your house tomorrow morning. Make sure you are alone." You will," I said. "The second I have that signed revocation back in my hand, I will personally call the manager of your bank and inform him that the POA is null and void and that you suspect fraudulent activity on your account. We'll put them on high alert. When your niece and her husband walk in there on Monday, they won't be walking into a bank. They'll be walking into a trap." A slow, cold smile touched my lips for the first time in months. It was a beautiful, elegant, and utterly ruthless plan. The next morning, I told Maria I was feeling unwell and wanted to rest in my room alone. As soon as she had closed the door, I made my way to the front of the house to wait. The courier arrived precisely on time. The notary, a kind, professional woman, was patient as I painstakingly signed my name on the revocation document, my hand guided by a will of pure iron. The signature was still shaky, but it was the most powerful thing I had done in months. I had just taken back the key to my kingdom. David called me an hour later to confirm he had the document. "It's done, Esther," he said. "The trap is set. Now all you have to do is wait. Let them think they're in control. Let them walk themselves right into the cage." I spent the weekend in my wheelchair, a silent, watchful presence in my own home. I watched Brianna and Darnell, their faces alight with giddy, triumphant greed. They were celebrating their victory, blind to the fact that their world was about to come crashing down. They chattered excitedly about the new house they were going to buy, the vacations they would take, the life they would lead with my money. I listened, my face a mask of placid indifference, but inside the silent general was counting down the hours to the final battle. They had mistaken my silence for submission. They were about to learn it was the calm before the storm. Monday morning arrived, pregnant with a tense, theatrical air. Brianna and Darnell were practically vibrating with anticipation. Brianna dressed with particular care, choosing a sharp, professional-looking blazer, as if she were heading to a board meeting where she was the CEO. Darnell put on a gold watch that was a little too flashy, a costume piece for the role of wealthy investor he was about to play. They thought this was their coronation day. They had no idea it was their day of judgment. "All right, Aunt May," Brianna said, her voice bright and condescendingly cheerful as she placed a glass of water on the table beside my wheelchair. "Darnell and I have to go to the bank to sort out some of your accounts. Just some boring paperwork to make sure your long-term care is all set up. We'll be back in a couple of hours." "Be good," I managed to say, my voice a low, gravelly whisper. The double meaning was entirely for my own satisfaction. They exchanged a look, a quick conspiratorial smirk. My apparent helplessness was the final confirmation they needed. They were home free. They practically skipped out the door, the check for $55,000, the blood money from the sale of my soul, tucked safely in Brianna's expensive handbag. I wheeled myself to the living room window and watched them drive away. Then I picked up the phone and dialed David Thompson. "They're gone," I said. "Excellent," he replied. "The bank manager, Mr. Harrison, is expecting them. He's been fully briefed. He knows to let them play out their entire hand before he acts. The show is about to begin, Esther." The scene at the bank, as David recounted it to me later with grim satisfaction, played out exactly as we had planned. Brianna and Darnell, bypassing the teller line, asked to see the branch manager, exuding an air of importance. They were shown into Mr. Harrison's polished, wood-paneled office. He was a stern, silver-haired man in his late 50s, his face a mask of professional neutrality. "Good morning," Brianna began, sliding the $55,000 check across the desk. "We'd like to deposit this into my aunt's account, Esther May Washington." Mr. Harrison glanced at the check without expression and nodded. "Certainly." He made a few keystrokes on his computer. "That has been deposited." "Wonderful," Brianna said, emboldened. Now there's a second transaction. We need to make a transfer. We're setting up a new account for her long-term care fund. She slid a piece of paper with their new joint account number on it across the desk. We'd like to transfer $155,000 from her investment account into this new one. That's the amount from the check plus an additional $100,000. This was the moment. The kill shot. And you have the authority to make this transfer? Mr. Harrison asked, his voice flat. Of course, Brianna said, reaching into her handbag and producing the durable power of attorney document with a flourish. She smoothed it out on the desk. As you can see, I have full power of attorney. I am my aunt's legal representative. Mr. Harrison picked up the document. He studied it for a long silent moment, his eyes scanning the pages. Brianna and Darnell watched him, their faces smug, confident. They had the magic key. The door to their new life was about to swing open. Then Mr. Harrison looked up, his eyes cold as steel chips. I'm afraid I cannot accept this document, he said, his voice quiet but carrying the unmistakable weight of absolute authority. Brianna's smile faltered. What? What do you mean? It's perfectly legal. It was signed and notarized. It was legal, Mr. Harrison corrected her gently. However, I was notified by your aunt's legal counsel, Mr. David Thompson, on Friday afternoon that this durable power of attorney was legally and irrevocably revoked by your aunt. It is no longer a valid instrument. You have no authority whatsoever over Ms. Washington's accounts. The color drained from Brianna's face. She looked as if she had been slapped. Revoked? That's not possible. He can't. She's not capable. On the contrary, Mr. Harrison continued, his voice hardening. Ms. Washington appears to be perfectly capable of managing her own affairs. Now that brings us to the matter of this check. He tapped a finger on the $55,000 deposit slip. This is a rather large sum. Where did it come from? Darnell, seeing their dream evaporating, found his voice. It's from the sale of an old car she owned. It was just sitting in the garage. We sold it for her. I see, Mr. Harrison said. You sold her car and now you are attempting to transfer the proceeds, plus an additional $100,000, into an account under your own names, using a power of attorney that you had to have known was, at the very least, morally compromised. Is that correct? The trap was sprung and the doors were locked. Brianna was speechless, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. Due to the highly suspicious nature of this attempted transaction, the manager said, his voice now like a judge pronouncing a sentence, and the formal complaint of suspected elder fraud filed by Ms. Washington's attorney, the bank is placing a legal hold on the $55,000 from the sale of the vehicle, pending a full investigation. I am also legally obligated to file a report with the state's Adult Protective Services and the district attorney's office. He stood up, a clear dismissal. I would advise you to find a good lawyer. Now if you'll excuse me, I have other clients to attend to. They were left sitting there in the silent wood-paneled office, the invalid power of attorney lying on the desk like a dead snake. The money was gone, frozen. Their grand plan had not just failed. It had exploded in their faces, leaving them exposed as criminals, their greed laid bare under the cold, fluorescent lights of the bank. They had walked in as kings ready to claim their treasure. They would walk out as what they truly were, pathetic common thieves caught with their hands in the cookie jar. And the best part? The jar was empty and the door had just locked behind them. The fallout was not a storm but a swift, silent and devastatingly efficient demolition. David Thompson, armed with the bank manager's official report and a signed affidavit from me, moved with the precision of a seasoned general. There was no need for a messy, protracted legal battle. He had them cornered and they knew it. He sent a single terrifying letter to Brianna and Darnell, a document that laid out the stark reality of their situation. It detailed the charge of financial elder abuse, a felony in the state of Maryland. It mentioned the potential for wire fraud charges. It outlined the civil suit he was prepared to file, seeking not only the return of the car's value but also punitive damages for emotional distress. And it concluded with a simple, non-negotiable offer. Sign a full confession, relinquish any and all future claims to my estate, and cooperate fully in the return of the Cadillac, and I might consider asking the district attorney not to press criminal charges. It was checkmate. They were ruined. Their dream of a new house was replaced by the nightmare of a possible prison sentence. Their greed had led them to the edge of a cliff, and David had just given them a firm, decisive shove. They folded completely. They signed every document David put in front of them, their hands trembling, their faces pale with the sick realization of their own stupidity. They were stripped of any connection to me, legally and financially. They were excised from my life like a tumor. The final piece of the puzzle was getting my car back. David tracked down the collector who had bought it. The man, a wealthy enthusiast from Virginia, was horrified when he learned the circumstances of the sale. He was a legitimate businessman who had been duped by Darnell's story of an old woman needing to liquidate assets for her care. He had no desire to be embroiled in a fraud case or to own a piece of stolen history. He readily agreed to unwind the deal, accepting the return of his $55,000, the same money that was still frozen in my bank account, in exchange for the car. David arranged everything. He hired a specialty flatbed towing service to retrieve the Cadillac and bring it home. The day it returned was the day I truly came back to life. I had Maria help me into my best dress. I sat in my wheelchair on my front porch, waiting. I felt like a bride waiting for her groom, or a queen waiting for the return of her conquering army. When the flatbed truck turned the corner onto my quiet tree-lined street, its precious cargo gleaming under the afternoon sun, my heart swelled so much I thought it might burst. The driver, a careful, respectful man, slowly and gently backed the Cadillac off the truck and into my driveway. It was perfect. The cherry red paint shone, the chrome bumpers glittered, the white leather interior looked as creamy and inviting as ever. It was more beautiful than I had remembered. It was not just a car. It was a symbol of my victory. It was my soul returned to me. The driver handed me the keys. They felt cool and heavy in my palm, a familiar, comforting weight. He then handed me a small handwritten note from the collector. I read it later. It said, "Ma'am, a car this beautiful deserves to be with the woman who loved it first. My apologies for my part in your trouble." I never saw Brianna or Darnell again. I heard from my cousin that they sold their house and moved out of state, their tails between their legs, their reputation in the community destroyed. Their story became a cautionary tale, a whispered lesson about the dangers of greed and the folly of underestimating a quiet old woman. My revenge was complete. It wasn't loud or explosive. It was quiet, legal, and absolute. I didn't need to ruin them. They had ruined themselves. My victory was in the quiet satisfaction of justice served, of order restored. I sat on my porch for a long time that day just looking at my car. Later, with Maria's help, I stood up from my wheelchair, my legs still shaky but my will like iron. Leaning on my cane, I walked slowly, deliberately, down the porch steps and across the driveway. I ran my hand along the smooth, curved fender of the Cadillac, a reunion with a long-lost piece of myself. I opened the door, slid into the driver's seat and put the key in the ignition. The engine turned over with a deep, throaty, magnificent roar, the sound of my own heart starting again. I couldn't drive it yet, but I would. Oh yes, I would. I was Esther Mae Washington. I was the Queen of Monroe Street. And I was back on my throne.